You know what they always say? If you're going to get in a bike gang, make sure you tell the story and make sure it's interesting, right? What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of The Bikeriders, the newest film from director Jeff Nichols. Okay, so finally, after a year of waiting, we finally have Jeff Nichols' inspired by true story film called The Bikeriders, and it tells the story of a group called the Vandals, which were based out of Chicago. In essence, what they were is they started out as a bike riding gang, and they turned into something much more serious, drug smuggling and stuff like that. But in essence, it tells the early history of a character named Johnny, who's played by Tom Hardy, another character who's played by Austin Butler, who plays Benny, and the main narrator, who's being interviewed by a character played by Mike Faist, is played by Jodie Comer. And it kind of, in a Goodfellas style way, it kind of tells the rise and fall of this particular gang and how they became a much more serious entity. And it just kind of shows that nature, brings in characters that are played by, of course, Michael Shannon, and of course Norman Reedus. And it just is a film that is very much inspired by Goodfellas and the nature of what it's trying to do and kind of the storytelling. So like I said earlier, it's a film that it was at Telluride last year. It was a film that I've been wanting to see. I heard very mixed reviews for this film, which kind of disappointed me a little bit, because Jeff Nichols is a very talented writer, director. He's done some really interesting stuff, especially with Michael Shannon, who's in every one of his films. But it was a film that I heard a lot of rumblings that it was very much a Goodfellas light. It was very much, a film that very much follows the aesthetic of what Goodfellas does. You have a female narrator, you have some other characters, and I said, whatever, it's probably a decent movie, even if it's inspired or feels a lot like Goodfellas. A lot of films do that. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I've heard very mixed things about this movie. It did get an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that doesn't mean anything at this point. It could be, 3 out of 5 and you still get a positive rating. So this movie's finally out. It was part of the mystery screening that they do like every other week at this point. And for my honest review, and that sigh is coming as an unfortunate thing, for my honest review of this movie, it's not very good. It's not very good at all. Not only is it not very good, but it feels very slight. It feels like it's missing like an hour of actual footage that was taken out maybe by the director or the editor. It's a film that is so aping Goodfellas, which once again, they can be inspired. They can take, tones from Goodfellas and stuff like that. That's fine. That it almost is embarrassing, to be fairly honest. It's a film that really falls apart pretty quickly, and it's through people like, unfortunately, like Jodie Comer, who I really respect and like a lot, who is one of the most annoying people, or one of the most annoying characters I've heard in quite a while. She is basically doing what Lorraine Bracco did in Goodfellas, and it becomes so annoying and so ear-piercingly bad that it's almost like it's like caricature at that point. I don't know what Jodie Comer's doing, but you can tell that she's not American by her accent. It's the same way with Tom Hardy in this film too, who Tom Hardy is given this weird accent performance, like American accent, that just doesn't feel right. It feels like, they didn't get the great dialect coaches that they wanted or that they were supposed to get. And I don't know, there was points where Jodie Comer is speaking in that weird ass accent that she has in this movie, and you can hear the dialect from her, where she's from, the country she's from. She's either from like Scotland or England or something like that, and it's really noticeable. Like there are points where I'm like, oh my god, it's bleeding through. And I don't blame Jodie Comer for trying. It just, I feel like, she deserves better, to be fairly honest. And it's not even like, they're not even the worst part. Jodie Comer is pretty bad in the movie, but at least Tom Hardy is interesting. But another character, and I love Austin Butler to death, but he is so misused and so underutilized in this movie. And he's supposed to be a main character, and it just feels like there's so much missing from his character and so much missing from the story. And like he'll disappear for time on end, and he'll he's supposed to be in this relationship with Jodie Comer's character, and there's no dimension to it at all, and there's no chemistry between the two, and the decisions they make are so rushed and so kind of all over the place. And like watching Jodie Comer get angry at Johnny, who is the Tom Hardy character, and just kind of throw him by the wayside. And then there's other stuff. There feels like there's so much being put into this movie that they couldn't stick the landing on any particular scene, and therefore, like, some of the stuff that's really interesting, it just gets short shrifted. And that's with the characters, especially like I said, Jodie Comer and Austin Butler, and the character of Johnny and Tom Hardy, as good as they, especially as good as Tom Hardy can be, it just feels like there's not enough meat there. There's not enough stuff there that it really makes it very hard to be really entertained by this movie. And on top of everything, it's just not a very interesting movie. It really isn't. It takes the idea of what Goodfellas is, which is this really multifaceted, very multidimensional, very big character study piece of Henry Hill and his group of individuals. And the characters are all interesting. They're all dimensional. They're all, even though Lorraine Bracco can come off a little annoying in her role, she's still really good, and unfortunately that's just not portrayed here. You have characters that are played by Norman Reedus, who plays a California biker, and you have people like Karl Glusman, and you have people like Michael Shannon, who's a regular of Jeff Nichols, and they're fine, they're interesting, but they're just not given anything to do. They're just there. There's like one scene that Michael Shannon has that's interesting, but then you bring in Boyd Holbrook, and you bring some other characters, and they're thrown in there as like, almost like we need characters in this movie to have characters develop other characters, and it never flows perfectly like full. It just feels like there's so much missing out of this movie that I felt like I was kind of having my head spin, and it becomes such a problem. It's such a Godfather light or Goodfellas light in essence. It's really such a shame, and I hate to be like that. I mean, the movie looks amazing. It definitely looks like it's set in the 60s. Everybody's like really grungy looking and really nasty looking, and the way the characters are portrayed are very seedy and so on and so forth. But it moves through the timeline so quickly, and then it interjects Mike Faist into the mix, who plays this guy interviewing, and there's nothing really to his character at all. He's just there to talk to Jodie Comer's character and sometimes show up in some scenes. And I felt this movie just lacked so much. It lacks so much nuance. It lacks so much storytelling. I think Jeff Nichols is so much better than what we were given here. And it's such a shame. I was really just put off by how just like mentally, just how, not mentally, but just how unstable this film becomes, even from the early get-go. You'd think a movie where it says, here's the interviews that the Jodie Comer character plays, there's interview segments, but you'd think they would get other people to interview, and then the small pieces they do, they're interesting, but then it's blockaded with all this nonsense of like, they're getting into fights for no reason, and then they're just, they're throwing scenes in there where a different gang hangs out with the Vandals gang, and I would like to know a lot more about the Vandals and have a lot more, structure and a lot more fleshed out details. And it just moves so quickly, and it goes from like the Vandals, like the Vandals, a small group from Chicago, into this expansion of like epic proportions. But it's similar to like Bohemian Rhapsody, where things just happen so quickly and so dramatically that you lose, there's no montaging it. It's so strange. It really is. It's so in your face and so forceful, and it doesn't leave breathing room for anything. It's such a disappointment of a film. I was really shocked by how much I wanted to like this film, but even from the minute go, it felt like such a travesty of a film. I hate to be like that too, because I really like Jeff Nichols. I like a lot of the stuff he does. He's a very unique director, and I think he brings a lot to the table. But once again, it really feels like it needed another hour to flesh out these characters. And once again, like Austin Butler is a nothing burger in this movie, and Jodie Comer is an annoying kind of, no wonder why he'd not want to be with her, and his persona. And then Johnny just kind of sitting there in the backside, just kind of doing his thing. And then when people approach him, it's just like there's some cool scenes in it, but yeah, overall I really didn't like this film. It's probably one of the worst films I've seen this year, and I hate to be like that, but it's sometimes you see films that you're really excited for and they end up not being as good as you hope. So with that said, that's gonna kind of where I lie on the Bikeriders. It's gonna be in theaters very, very soon, or when you rewatch this, it should be out in theaters. But like I said, was looking forward to it. Was really disappointed. So that's my official opinion on the Bikeriders, now in theaters. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. As always, in the comments below, what did you think of this movie? If you watched it during the mystery screening that they had, are you going to see this film? Just be aware that you may like it, may not. I don't know. But overall, I didn't like this film. So anyways, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.